So minimalism with Miffy. What are the objectives of this session? Of course, understanding and appreciating minimalism with the help of Miffy. Miffy is this little bunny that you are seeing on the screen right now. Miffy, I am hoping that many of you would have probably seen Miffy, but probably haven't read too many books. Even if you are completely new to Miffy, we will get introduced to Miffy in this session, and then we'll try learning minimalism from the Miffy artworks. Learning how to practice minimalism and then motivating ourselves. This motivating ourselves part relies a lot on how you participate in this session. So it's quite up to you, by the way. I will be covering the first two points, first two objectives, and you will be responsible for the third one. Okay. Feel free to tweet to me on Mugdha Bapat, and be mindful of my spelling. It's a little tricky even for Indians. So please do note it down properly. And the hashtag we are given is SpeedCon 2021. I would be glad to connect with you after the session on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Gmail, anything actually. Okay, so here we go. According to you, what's minimalism? Do we can we just unmute all the participants so that I can get a few answers? Do we have anybody who's... I don't see anything on the chat as well.
I can say something. I think minimalism to me is being simple and clear and concise.
Yes, simple, clear, and concise. Very good points. So does anybody have to say anything other than simple, clear, and concise?
I feel like kind of along those lines, minimalism ends up being very straightforward.
Yeah, very straightforward. I like that definition as well. Yeah, so you are not beating around the bush. You are just coming to the point. That's great. So what does it mean for a technical communicator? I guess the same things, more or less. Your brains are already tuned to this, I guess.
I think it's providing just enough information at the right place at the right time.
Absolutely, just enough information at the right place at the right time. Okay, yeah, great. So can we actually do that as communicators? Our experience so far, people who are already working as technical communicators, our experience is that we get thrown off. We do want to achieve that just enough at the right place and at the right time. We do want to do that, but we do get thrown off our game quite a lot. So how do we practice it? And what are the challenges? That's what we'll start seeing, I guess. If we don't have too many working professionals here, then the next two questions might not be really answerable. Do you want to still take it up? Anybody?
Yeah,
Have you done?
Yes. I've done a little bit of science writing, and I think some of it is if I don't entirely understand something, I end up beating around the bush a little bit to get to a point just because I don't completely understand it.
Correct. Yeah, so we probably don't get a good understanding. We don't get enough opportunity, enough time to develop a good understanding of the subject matter. And that's why sometimes we end up writing a little vague and ambiguous drafts. And sometimes we just don't have enough opportunity to rewrite and keep editing our stuff so that it is really direct and minimalist, right? Yep. So how can we actually get to a place where we can just practice minimalism through our writing, and we don't have to do anything for it separately. How do we get to a place like that? That's what this session is about, or that's what I'm hoping. So in my words, it's a strategy for absolutely essential task-oriented info. Okay, so absolutely essential takes care of that at the right place thing, because if it's not, if it doesn't deserve to be at that place, then maybe it's not absolutely essential in that task, or in that journey of the user that we are contributing to. So that's a strategy. So this definition, again, I had created it in 2013, and still today I did not feel like changing it. So either I haven't learned much, or this was really good enough for the mental makeup that I have. It's not necessary that it is the right definition for everyone. It's the right definition for you if you feel like, sticking to it. So go ahead by all means and make sure that you have your own definition of good work and bad work. Okay, and you have to define it in such words that you can validate those often, and that for that to happen, it has to be a minimalist definition again. Okay, so do keep that in mind. So this is my definition, and we are going to look at content, minimalist content with this definition in mind. Okay, so now let's meet Miffy. To meet Miffy, let's read a small book. Rather, all the Miffy books are always small, by the way. They're like just they'll be just enough to occupy my palm, and I'm really short, so you can get the idea. So this is like, one of the books, The New Baby. One hint I'm going to give you is that Miffy is always in, not always, there are exceptions when Miffy changes her dress, but then that goes with the story. Here in this picture, Miffy is in the orange dress, and the new baby is in yellow. Okay, so now I'm going to read out the story, but I am going to ask you to jot down your observations of why I must have chosen Miffy to explain minimalism. Okay, so please do start jotting it down, and when I narrate the story, it might help you to get accustomed to my way of talking as well. So it might make more sense. So I thought I'll not use the recorded version of it. It is available on miffy.com, but I'm going to read it out so that you get more used to my way of talking. Okay, so start jotting down the points that you observe, why Miffy was chosen for as a mascot for minimalism by Mugdha. So here you go. Okay. Father and Mother Bunny a special secret knew, and one spring day they thought it time that Miffy knew it too. Look at the father and mother, and now Miffy. Okay. Hurrah, cried Miffy, dancing around. Hurrah, hurrah, what fun! For they had told her there would be a little baby bun. Okay. Now here's Miffy drawing. I'll make a picture now, she thought, as pretty as it can be. A picture of some little chicks. Babies love chicks, you see. And yes, here is the picture, with 8 chicks in all. And Father Bunny made a frame and hung it on the wall. Then Mother found a ball of wool. Would Miffy like that too? Oh yes, said Miffy, good idea. I'll make a mouse in blue. Quite soon there was a woolly mouse, and it looked really good. Miffy had learned from Grandma Bun to make things as you should. Oh, I'm sure I feel it, said Mummy Bun one day. I think this baby bunny is almost on its way. And sure enough, Soon after, the time had really come, and Father Bun told Miffy, "We have a baby Bun." And in the middle of the bed, close beside Mummy Bun, there lay the sweetest rabbit, and that was baby Bun. Miffy stood still beside the bed and thought how very small, that it would be so tiny, I had not known at all. And Miffy was allowed to hold the baby on her knee, for baby Bun was little then, and Miffy was big, you see. The next day, Miffy took to school a cake for everyone, so all her friends could celebrate the birth of baby Bun. That's it. And these are the other characters in Miffy that keep appearing. I want you to just observe how the two bears are, like Boris Bear and Barbara Bear. Miffy's school friends, Miffy's dog Snuffy. Then Poppy Pig has a niece, Grunty. And Melanie is Miffy's friend. Dan is another friend. He sits next to Miffy in the class, and look at how his ear is. Then there is this Uncle Pilot. He's not really related, but she just calls him Uncle. And then Father and Mother Bunny, Grandma and Grandpa Bunny, and then Aunt Alice. And that's the new baby that we looked at. So now, can you all start talking about what are your observations? Why I must have chosen Miffy to talk about minimalism?
I can talk about your decision. One thing I really noticed was Miffy's use of color. So the three primary colors were at play here. So the red, yellow, and the blue, and all of the things, or like even her dress, it can be made with the primary colors. So the yellow and the red, which I thought was really interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else?
I can go next. So Miffy, her friends Melanie and Dan, they all have the similar body proportions, and so does father, mother, grandpa, grandma. You know, you can quite make out the characters from the body structure.
Yeah, true. Even the age, right?
Yeah.
With the proportions, true.
Yeah.
Anybody else? So the creator of Miffy, Dick Bruna, he actually says, he calls it red, but it's an orange color. I don't know why he calls it red, but it's interesting that the sorry, I couldn't get you. Somebody was talking, right?
I think they accidentally unmuted themselves, so you can continue, Mugdha.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, so he keeps referring to it as red. So red, blue, green, and yellow and brown are the 5 colors he uses, and he calls black, white, and gray as the shades. Okay, and then look at the way he has templatized the rabbits, the bears, and the pigs, and the dog, right? So here we don't really have any other stray dogs, etc., that keep coming in the story, but then dogs are like that always. Okay, this was created in 1955. That's when my mom was born. So you can imagine what kind of printing technology was there, how he must have created it. He used to stay in the Netherlands, and there he had a young son, and he was telling some stories to the son, and then they saw a rabbit passing by in their garden, and that's where the son wanted to hear stories of that rabbit, and then that continued to be a ritual for every night. When the father would put the son to bed, he would have to tell stories of the rabbit, and that's when Dick Bruna thought that he could just, start creating a series of such stories, and that's how Miffy's journey started, and it's still starting. It's still going strong. It's wonderful to see the museum in Utrecht, I guess, or which place I had traveled. I don't remember. I had no friends to meet and nothing left to see, and that's how I ended up buying a museum card and visiting this place in 2007. And that's where my journey of minimalism, that's when the journey was already, it had begun, and Miffy um, just helped me understand it so well. I'm just grateful to Dick Bruna for it. So this is what I observed in the first go, just like you guys observed. Clean lines. He says if you can just show a road by just 2 parallel lines, you don't have to add any more details to it. If it's just one single line and that means the ground, it is the ground. So clean lines was his first clear thought, maybe, when he started working on these, and it was all hand drawn in those days. So he had to really take a brush and paint all the artworks. And that's why maybe then the templates came in. So minimal details. When you think about the grandma bunny and the mother bunny, look at the difference, how he differentiates between the two characters. The grandma bunny also has a necklace. The mother bunny has a pearl string, but the grandma bunny also has a shawl, right? So just those 2 differences. Now, if you look at the grandma bunny and the father bunny, absolutely no difference except for the body proportions. The father bunny is a little stout and the grandpa bunny is a little, with age, of course. So that's the natural progression he shows, with very few details and very few differentiators. So consistent designs, reuse of shapes and colors, small differentiators, very small differentiators. 5 colors, as I said before, 3 shades, 4 lines of poetry on each page. It had to be just 4 lines, and all the books are only of 12 to 16 pages. That's it. Not even 2, actually, 12 or 16, because that's how you print books even today. So that's how it was. And for that simple, I had put a question mark there only because I thought that, this is a good point to discuss at this conference, but we partially covered it before. When you say simple, it's simple for you as a writer. It might not be simple for the audience. Birth of a new baby in your house might not be that easy or simple for a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old. But for an adult, telling the young one about it, it's a simple thing. And that's when you can communicate it easily. Right? So the point that we covered just before this conversation was that something might be too technical, and that's why we can't write in a minimalist fashion. That's the same point here. So simple story for us, but probably it's difficult for his audience to understand it. So that was the point I wanted to drive here. Okay, so why minimalist content? You guys are already aware of it. I guess you have learned about it and answered in your class maybe multiple times. You don't want the user's brain to really work for you. You don't want them to go through pages and pages of content. You don't want to exhaust them. It has to be the right amount of content for a device. You don't want the users to keep scrolling throughout. You don't want to bury your users' heads under a heap of content. So yes, of course, minimal content is inevitable in today's world, especially after pandemic. I guess I don't want to do a task that I don't need to do. I don't want to read something that I don't want to. So that's making everybody look for easy options And if something is too complex, the tendency to leave it behind is shooting very high. So maybe that's why we need to really look at minimal content after 2020. It's kind of an inevitable detail now. Okay, so now let's look at minimalism. A couple of concepts in minimalism. I wanted to know if any of you already know about these, the Nuremberg funnel or the paradox of sense making. Have you gone through any of these concepts? Have you heard of these concepts ever before? I haven't gone off, right? You can hear me, right?
Yes, I think people are just shy.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. I thought we are a good group to, have an interactive session. It's just 20 of us. So there's nothing to be afraid of. So have you even heard of them? Don't even try to explain them if you don't want to, but have you heard about Nuremberg funnel before? Okay. If you haven't, I mean, I'm just taking the silence as a no. So if you haven't heard of Nuremberg funnel, then this is going to be a very interesting read for you. This theory was proposed in the World War times, and it was about how adult learners learn something new. So if you see the visual, what's happening there is the user or the or Miffy basically is on the go. And then somebody is shouting to her some instructions. So how much is going to be the grasping power of a user on the go, right? If you start making announcements which are written in paragraphs, nobody is going to listen to you and nobody is going to follow those instructions. That's what we keep seeing in the live conferences when you can when you are trying to tell them that, okay, these sessions are happening in this room and those sessions are happening in those rooms, and this is the change in the schedule and this and that, and people are still coming back to you with the same questions. I bet it must have happened even during this conference. The volunteers must have experienced that. You yourself, when you are an organizer of anything, you must have noticed yourself giving the same instruction again and again, because users are always on the go and they are not going to look for instructions. They will have to look for instructions as a compulsion. They don't want to do it themselves. They're not willing to do it. You are forcing them to do that, right? To listen to the instructions. That's the theory of the Nuremberg funnel in a very superficial terms, actually. You can just go and read about it. It's very interesting, and I bet you'll really like that. Same thing goes for the paradox of sense making. You feel that if you give all the information without skipping anything, that's when the user will feel empowered to make a decision. That actually introduces analysis paralysis in users if you give them too much of information. So what's too much and what's absolutely essential? That strategy again comes into play. How to identify what's absolutely essential and what's excessive. So in that context, task-oriented information actually is your guide. If that information helps the users to complete the task without a problem, yes, it's absolutely essential. If they can still complete the task without knowing some information, that's probably not absolutely essential and may not belong at that place. Sometimes you just include it for legal assurance that you and your organization are not going to run into problems because you did not disclose it somewhere. So that's how it happens in tech writing most of the times. So keep that in mind. So, okay, Nuremberg funnel is really interesting. There are many studies done for it. I would request you all to see it, research it and study it. And if you want, we can definitely discuss it offline. So how to practice minimalism, the crux of the session today. So I don't know how you understand a topic. Generally, for me, at least, I understand the concepts first, why a feature is being developed, how the feature is going to be rolled out. I try to understand the concepts and the terms and terminology related to it. And then I try to focus on the tasks, right? So instead of that, when you start writing, focus on tasks first and then go to the concepts, because concepts become the relevant information. Most of the writers from my generation or earlier generations try to first write down the overview topic and then they go to the task topics. So that's something that you need to take care of when you become writers or when you start working, or if you are already working. Benefit from the modular structures. Don't leave that benefit out. Include scenarios and use cases, and that's when you'll start realizing that you are now focusing more on the tasks. Always assume that people are not going to read all the words that you write. So assume that they are just going to, read less and less. So don't compel them to read and think too much. So you have to rewrite 8 times. That was a quote from one famous English author, literary author. I'm just going to leave it to you to find it out. I guess you might know him as well. But he used to write his drafts 8 times. And he is famous even today. He was from early 19th century or late 18th century. I don't remember his exact period. So don't teach users step by step. Help them explore. Okay, so you don't have to tell them each little step if they are expert users. It's okay to be abrupt. So when we started our careers in TechCom, we actually had to assume that the users won't know how to operate a mouse or operate the keyboard, or might not know what the keys are called. So we used to give graphics of everything and we used to write. Now users have gone ahead, so they don't need to be told all those things. So remember to analyze your users as per your times, so that you don't really keep practicing the same old things even after 10 years or 20 years. You have to keep evolving, and because the world is evolving around you. So don't teach users step by step. Help them explore. It's okay to be abrupt, because errors are teachable moments. When you actually do something wrong, that's when you remember what's the right way to do it. So help them get back on their feet. What does it mean? Draft beautiful error messages, very helpful error messages, so that they don't feel lost again. So they don't ever see that error message again. Okay, so that's how errors are teachable moments. This is the basic principle of minimalism, that errors are teachable moments. And that's how adult learners learn. So next, you have to remember that users are not thirsty for knowledge. They are not interested. They're stuck with a task, and that's why they need to know a few things, and that's why you are helping them with it. Okay, users are spontaneous. They are busy learning on their own. How many users, how many of you actually try to use something for the first time by opening the manual? You don't. You buy a phone, you start playing with it, you fiddle with it, and then you start learning things. You look at the manual only when you can't find something that you need on your own, or through Google, or through your friends. Google, you didn't actually wasn't that smart when we were, we were starting off our careers. So maybe the usage of content for common phones and your common hardware is really like, Google is going to crawl your content better than your users. So make sure that your content is understandable by Google first, if you're writing for those kinds of products. But yeah, so essentially you have to remember that users are going to spontaneous and they are going to busy learning their own on their own, but you have to assist them. Your content has to assist them. Don't guess what your users want. Try to observe users and usage patterns through your studies, through your user studies. Rethink about your authoring and publishing environment. Is it convenient for you and your organization, or is it selected for crafting the right experience for your users? And if you think that creating that right content experience is a costly affair with respect to tools, you're wrong. There are so many tools available. There are so many scripts available, utilities available, that you can automate a few things and you can actually create a authoring and publishing environment that can craft a really rich content experience for your users. Also, of course, study the products and services you are documenting. That simple and technical thing that comes into play here again. If it's too technical for you, it'll never be simple for your users. So don't even try. Study it well, assimilate all the information, and when it becomes simple for you, that's when you'll be able to write well. If you don't have that kind of information available, support available, then keep writing, write, rewrite, and then you'll be able to create better drafts. So how do you train your own brain for this? Focus on user tasks.
Sorry, I just had.
Yeah, sure. You want me to go back?
Yeah, the one before this, the overview one where you said focus on the tasks. I just wanted a little more clarity on that. What do you mean by focus on tasks and concepts?
Okay. So when
I'm the old timer, so you see, even I do the overview first. So just wanted to get that.
Okay, there you go. Okay. So essentially what happens is when we start understanding a feature, you start writing the concept topics first. If you are working in data environment, then obviously you would start writing concepts, then tasks, and then references. You'll be bucketing information in that fashion. So you obviously start with concept. But when you start with concepts, that's when you start overloading the users with information. Their cognitive load is not taken into consideration if you start your drafts with concepts. Instead, if you start writing the tasks, even if they don't really make much sense to you, you feel like, you have started writing something from the middle of it, and then you are going to go back and write the overview section or the introduction section or the concepts, or even define the terms, define the concepts. Even if that's bothering you, go ahead and try writing the tasks first. You will be able to understand when to introduce concepts and where and how to introduce them better if you understand the user task first. That's where it's a little tricky. I know it's your usual brain pattern, because you studied in that way. You studied that, you had paragraphs and paragraphs, and you had to read them through, and then you had to you were given instructions on something. So explain, instruct, and refer was the hierarchy of information. But what I'm trying to tell you is, while reading, that might be all right, but while writing, go with instructions first and then write the explanation part. That's how you can look at the first point. Does that make it any clearer?
Yes, thanks, Mugdha.
Welcome. Was that Sangeeta, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, the brain part. Now this is very important. Again, the same point, Sangeeta. Focus on users' task and not on product features. How do you do it? through writing instructions first and then writing explanations later. That's how you start training your brain first. Then you structure your content based on the task list, not on the number of features. That's a common mistake that all of us do initially. But if you start preparing a task list rather than a feature list, you will see the difference. You end up creating really minimalist content, and it becomes easy for you to maintain as well in future. Oh, okay, we are already 5 minutes. Oh my God. Write to the user, distinguish between expert and naive readers in paragraph construction. Like you can, in data at least, you can just omit a couple of first, like you can conditionalize the first two steps of a task if they are for only the naive user and not for the expert user. While publishing, you can choose which audience you want to cater to. So if you don't have that, if you don't have that technological support in your authoring environment, what do? You write the most essential, crux of the rather summary of your paragraph or your task right at the beginning, so that the expert user understands whether they want to learn the rest of the paragraph to make sense of the first sentence that they read. If they can read the first sentence, and if they don't really want to, they feel like they didn't get anything from reading the rest of the paragraph, the next time they come across such a sentence, they know that they can skip the paragraph. Okay, so that's a very tricky way of writing, but you'll get it with practice. You'll be able to, cater to expert and naive users within the same draft. You'll be able to cater to both of them. Initially, when you start practicing minimalism, initially go for a round of minimalism review apart from your self-review. Do your self-review and then do a minimalism review, and include that minimalist review right after you structure your content, and again after you write your content. Later, you can integrate the minimalism review with your self-review. And of course, practice, and when you're totally exhausted, practice a little more. That's the only way to go about it. So just one ending note here. Just make sure that you are not ending up with abrupt and confusing or incomplete user documentation. If you just go and think only about minimalism, you start becoming an expert user because you have been studying everything so much, and then you just forget to address the needs of your naive users. That does happen. So be aware of that. We have seen a couple of examples like that, a developer writer wrote the content and then they just didn't know how to make sense of it. A few users were totally frustrated with the content. So that can happen. So beware of that risk. Remember that minimalism is always an afterthought. When you start learning a new topic, your head would swarm with so many thoughts and so many ideas. Abundance is natural. Minimalism is not natural. Nature always gives everything in abundance. And we are the ones who don't know how to use it in a minimalist way. And that's why we end up like this in these pandemics. So yeah, minimalism is an afterthought. So try to practice it every day. Without that, if you don't really, go that way as a person, you'll not be able to go there as a writer as well. Not full length for sure. So thank you. And this is the third objective, right? Where we were saying that we'll motivate ourselves. Now, action completely depends on you. It's not up to me that you will start practicing minimalism from today, but I would sure hope so. And so definitely try it out and connect with me my Gmail ID is given, my Twitter handle is given. Please do connect with me. I would be glad to take your questions and comments and suggestions, and of course the feedback.